Hello, how to do, and welcome back to the Daily American. Today I'm going to go over the calculator that I used when I was choosing the generator setup that I've currently got. And I've got a couple of them to show you. What I've done is I've developed a couple of spreadsheets that do a bunch of calculations for you. And it's nothing that's really set in stone, but it's a good way to get your mind wrapped around this whole concept of running off of generator power. A lot of people, including me, are just unaware of exactly what it's going to take to run a generator until you have to do it. This will jumpstart your education down the path of generator power and fuel consumption, fuel storage capacity, the whole 9 yards. So you'll have a lot better understanding from the jump on how to get your setup just right. So the first calculator sheet that we've got here, this is what I like to call the fuel consumption awareness sheet. What this will do is this will break down gallons per hour at a certain percentage of load. Now this is going off of the owner's manual for the generator that I selected. You can modify these numbers to try out different generators, and this is where I figured out that my current generator was not quite exactly what I needed. So how it breaks down, you put these numbers in for fuel consumption, you add your fuel price per gallon, the types of fuel that you will want to run. I added a line in here for long-term gasoline storage in case we wanted to put the fuel preservative or stabilizer in it. The one that got the best views or reviews, to my knowledge, is this PRI-G. It's expensive, but this will also tell you exactly how much you're going to be using based upon their recommended percentage of use per gallon. So you'll know how much that breaks down in cost. And like I say, guys, this is just to get your mind wrapped around exactly what you're going to be needing. So let's say that your particular outage runs for 1 day and you're going to run it for your daytime hours, so at a 50% duty cycle. So we've got 12 hours of runtime. Based on this consumption for one generator or two and our prices, this is how many gallons we're going to need, how much it's going to cost per hour, and then how much the total cost is going to be for running one generator for that day at 50% or two generators at 50%. So, that goes ahead and shows you that this could potentially cost more than you thought or cost way less than you thought. Also, it'll break down how many jugs of gasoline that you're going to need if that's what you're going to use for storage. The most universal is your 5-gallon jug. It says that you're going to need 2 per generator. Okay, that's not that bad. Propane tanks. Now, your Walmart tanks are now in 15-pound capacity. Nobody told me that either. I was a little upset to find that out. So if we put that in, that means we're going to need 2 of those as well per generator. Okay? So let's rerun the hurricane disaster that we just had. So we were without power for 9 days. And on average, I would say that we run that generator for 60% of the time. If we're working that generator at half capacity and it runs for 60% of that 9 days, then we're going to consume per generator 55 gallons of gasoline. That means we're going to need 11 jugs of gas per generator. So having a fuel efficient generator moves way up the priority list when you're looking at a lengthy time without power and having to store and buy all of this gasoline, because per generator you're looking at $158. Then you've got to buy all of the storage devices. And then I was thinking about this too. You might as well know the weight of it, because you couldn't put all of that in the back of a light SUV. It'd go through the floor. You got to think about how strong you are. Are you going to be able to move 300 pounds of gasoline at a time? You know, those are all useful things to know. Look at this. For the propane, 21 cylinders of propane, the Walmart cylinders. That's a whole rack. That's more than a whole rack, more than the whole cage. And the weight goes up exponentially. I mean, it's 560, you might as well say 570 pounds. That, of course, is the propane and the weight of the tank itself. And those are approximate. There's no real way to dial that in, exactly. But, I mean, it gets close enough to put you in the ball game. Now, say you have to have strict climate control for elderly people. You have to run medical machinery and stuff like that. So say that you're only shutting down for fuel ups. Now things are really starting to change and get expensive. So for your disaster prep, this can go a long way into getting you a good head start on where you're going to need to be. Now, if you wanted to store all of this gasoline, this 86 gallons of gasoline per generator, then you're going to need about 6 ounces or 5.5 ounces of fuel stabilizer to go with that fuel, and this is going to add to the cost. So if you go to this line right here, it adds that cost in. This became a very useful tool to help me decide how to better utilize my space, my finances, and my available emergency power to better suit what I was going to do in case this repeated itself. Say next year we have another 9 days out, I know exactly how I need to prep beforehand, how much cash I'm going to need on hand, how many storage devices I'm going to need on hand, and it lets me know exactly where my money's fixing to go. So, on to my next sheet that we've got here. It's going to let you know exactly what size generator that you're going to need, or if your current generator is going to fit the bill. And you can change these depending on which generator you choose. You put these numbers in, it'll break it all down for you, and then over here it will tell you whether or not you're outrunning your generator capacity. So when I went through my household, I used a clamp meter to find the starting amperage or starting watts and running watts for all of my items in the house. Now, I bundled some of them together, such as the radiator heaters. I've got 2 radiator style heaters for inside the house in case it's really cold and we want to have additional heating besides the heat pump. And the reason I chose to do that is because to use the central auxiliary heater, we'll use, well, it says it right here, the central auxiliary heat. That uses 27 amps or 6,480 watts running. That must be a really big heater. And we very rarely use it. Now remember, when that central auxiliary heater runs, the central fan's also going to be running and the heat pump is going to be running. So that's going to put a massive load on your emergency electrical supply. So by running radiator heaters inside the house and using the central fan to circulate it, then we're only adding an additional 3,000 watts. So you got two separate ends of the house, so it's on 2 separate 120 legs, which is why I've classified it as 240 volt. We're only adding 3,000 watts of capacity instead of almost 6,500. So it gives us more breathing room, and they heat sufficiently, more than run you out of there. So, and I bundled the convenience items. Convenience items are all of our fans, our TV, internet, computers, the refrigerator, the freezer, are 120 volt circuits that are going to be on all the time. I went out to the breaker box and put an amp meter on the main line so I can see exactly how much the house uses when the refrigerator turns on, when the refrigerator is just running with everything else on, when the freezer turns on, and when the freezer and refrigerator start up together, when they're just running and everything else is running on cruise control. And this was the differential. So it's starting at 10 amps and then it runs 3 amps is all the convenience items are. It's very, very little power. I mean, you could, pedaling a bicycle takes more energy. Okay, so this is why I mean that the generator that we had before, only needing to run 360 watts, was a gross waste of fuel because it didn't have an inverter to where it would idle itself down. Now, it was very fuel efficient, but it could have been so much better had it had this idle down feature. Now, you'll say, all right, well, now, dadgummit, look at that starting amps for your heat pump. Well, that's after I added in a soft start. I can now run my convenience items, my central fan, the heat pump, or the AC all off of one generator. Now, it'll be pretty much all that generator can do, but it can be done off of one generator. I'll demonstrate. Right over here, this is how the calculator is going to run. Turn on the convenience items, and there you go. So starting watts needed will be right at our maximum capacity, but our cruising watts is only half capacity. And if we go back to our consumption sheet, now I have a very, very good idea about how much fuel I'm going to be using. Now, if we wanted to load share, it gets even less. But then again, you're going to be running 2 generators instead of 1. So pick your battles. Now, before I added this soft start, the starting amps for the AC compressor, which comes on during heat pump usage or AC usage, was around 80 to 90 amps. Wouldn't start the AC. It would start it right by itself. Well, what's the fun in that when you can't run the TV at the same time because it'll shut everything down and go into overload? Say I wanted to take a hot shower. Perfectly reasonable. So let's turn on the well and the water heater. Now we're going to go over here and we have to run 2 of our generators at maximum capacity. Now, if you remember my last video, you stayed all the way to the end, you see exactly what those generators can put out for about 1.5 seconds worth of startup amperage. And it's more than that. So it will more than run this, especially when these are total running watts. The running watts are what you really have to pay attention to as far as maximum capacity goes. It's at 87% of both of the generators' capacity. So everybody in the house could take hot showers for as long as they wanted or as long as we've got fuel. And the well can run, and the heat pump can cycle, and the central fan going, and the TV go. Be just like you weren't without power at all. And then when all the showers are done, everybody's done wasting time, turn them back off again. And now you're either back down to 1 generator, or you can leave it on 2 and they'll just be back there purring, basically using nothing. Say we need to fire up the heater. So again, we're going to be over the capacity for 1, but firing up 2, we're right in there. That's 50% of each generator's capacity. So then I can go right back to my sheet and have a very good idea about how much it's going to be costing me per hour to do that. Okay? Helps you keep a track in your head of what you're going to need before you need it. That's basically what we're after. We want to properly prepare because that prevents piss poor performance. So anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in for another episode 2 of the Perfect Generator Setup and how we came about it. I hope you like this whole wrap your head around it video with the different calculators and whatnot so you can get a visual for what's going on and what you're going to need. If it gave you something to think about, or if it helped you out in any way, let me know in the comments section. Let me know if it was a waste of time. Let me know if you would like to see more videos like this, or if you would like to get a template of your own, how to set this up. Maybe I can just export you one. Just let me know. Give me a like and subscribe, and thanks for stopping by.